So, picture this, I finally buy my dream townhouse. It's perfect, except for one tiny, or rather, not so teeny detail. The Homeowners Association, or, as I've come to call it, the hub of outrageous antics. And at the center of this hub, the queen bee herself, the HOA president, who we'll just call Karen. Thanks for listening to my story, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of suburban justice. From the day I moved in, Karen seemed to have a special interest in me. My welcome basket wasn't a fruitcake. It was a 3-page letter detailing all the rules I was already breaking. Apparently, my welcome mat was half an inch too wide, and the wreath on my door was seasonally inappropriate for late May. Yeah, that's the level we're starting at. But the real drama started with the community gate. My townhouse is at the very back of the development, right next to a service gate that leads to a quiet side street. This was a huge selling point for me. It meant I could pop out for groceries or a quick coffee without navigating the entire winding complex. The previous owner even gave me the gate code and a key, explaining it was an unofficial but long-standing perk for the residents in this corner. For 2 glorious months, I used that gate without a single issue. It was my secret shortcut, my little slice of convenience. Life was good. Too good. Apparently, one sunny afternoon, I came home to find a giant, newly installed padlock on the gate. My key didn't work. My code was useless. And taped to the bars was a notice, printed in an aggressive font I can only describe as Furious Times, New Roman. It read, "This gate is for authorized personnel only. Unauthorized use is prohibited and will be met with fines. By order of the HOA," and right at the bottom, in a smug, loopy signature, was Karen's name. My heart sank. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It felt personal. It was a direct shot from Karen, and I had no idea why. I immediately went to the next HOA meeting, ready to plead my case. The room was exactly as you'd imagine. Beige walls, stale coffee, and about a dozen residents who looked either bored or annoyed. Karen was sitting at the head of the table, radiating an aura of self-importance. I calmly explained that the gate was a major reason I bought the property, and that its use was an established custom for the previous owner, and, by extension, for me. I mentioned how it improved traffic flow and was a significant convenience. Before I could even finish, Karen cut me off. "Established custom," she scoffed, "is just another way of saying rule-breaking that we haven't caught yet. That gate is for landscapers and emergency services. Your convenience is a security risk to the entire community." She then launched into a dramatic monologue about strangers and vagrants potentially pouring in through my personal gateway. A few other board members nodded along, completely under her spell. My neighbor, a sweet older gentleman named Bob, tried to speak up for me, saying he'd seen residents use it for years without a problem. Karen shot him a look that could curdle milk and said, "Bob, we appreciate your input, but we're tightening security. The decision is final." I walked out of that meeting feeling completely defeated and more than a little angry. This wasn't about security. It was a power trip. For the next few weeks, I stewed. Every time I had to take the long way around, a 5-minute detour through the entire complex, I'd see Karen watering her petunias with a triumphant smirk. It was infuriating. I knew I couldn't fight her head on. She had the board wrapped around her finger. I had to get smarter. So, I started digging. I spent a weekend poring over the HOA's covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC&Rs. It was about as exciting as reading a phone book. But I was on a mission. I read every single line, every bylaw, every amendment. And then, buried deep in a section about property access and easements, I found it. A little sentence easily overlooked, but it was pure gold. The clause stated that all homeowners must have reasonable and unimpeded access to and from their property, via all designated entry and exit points as outlined in the original development plan. The keywords were all designated entry and exit points. My next stop was the county records office. I was a woman possessed. I spent hours sifting through dusty blueprints and official planning documents for our development, which were all public record. And there it was, on the original county-approved site plan from 1998. My little service gate wasn't just some forgotten entrance. It was officially labeled Residential Exit, Entry Point B. It was a designated access point from the very beginning. Karen hadn't just locked a service gate, she had illegally blocked a designated residential exit. My heart was pounding. I had her. I made high-quality copies of the blueprint, highlighting the relevant section with a bright yellow marker. I also copied the page from the CC&RS with the reasonable and unimpeded access clause. I felt like a lawyer preparing for the trial of the century. My evidence was undeniable. Armed with my documents, I requested a special emergency meeting with the HOA board, citing a violation of the governing documents. Karen couldn't refuse. I could almost feel her annoyance through the email exchange. The day of the meeting arrived. I walked in, not with a plea, but with a folder full of facts. The atmosphere was tense. Karen started the meeting by saying, "I hope this is important. We have already made a final decision on the gate." I just smiled calmly and said, "I believe you have. But I also believe that decision was made without all the necessary information." leading to a direct violation of our CC&Rs. I then passed my copies around the table to each board member. I started with the CC&Rs, reading the unimpeded access clause aloud for dramatic effect. Then, I presented the piece de resistance, the official county blueprint. As you can see, I said, pointing to the highlighted area, the gate in question is not a service gate. It is officially designated residential exit, entry point B, by padlocking it. The board is in breach of our own governing documents by illegally impeding access for a homeowner. The silence in the room was deafening. The board members stared at the blueprint, then at Karen. Her face went through a fascinating series of colors, from smug superiority to pale shock, and finally settling on a deep, blotchy red. She stammered, This must be an old document. It's not relevant anymore." But it was too late. The evidence was right there in black and white and yellow highlighter. My neighbor Bob spoke up first. "Well, I'll be," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "Looks like she's right, Karen. The plan is the plan." One by one, the other board members started murmuring their agreement. They couldn't argue with an official county document. The tide had turned. Karen, realizing she had lost, tried a different tactic. "Fine, but installing a new electronic keypad system for that gate will be expensive. We don't have it in the budget," she snapped. That's when I delivered the final blow. "Actually," I said, pulling one last paper from my folder, I took the liberty of getting a quote. "The cost to install a new keypad, programmable with the same codes as the main gate, is only a few $100s. I'm even willing to cover half the cost myself, just to get this resolved quickly and amicably." Checkmate. I had removed her last possible objection. The board voted right then and there. It was unanimous, apart from one very loud, very angry nay from Karen. The motion passed to remove the padlock and install a new keypad within 1 week. Walking out of that meeting was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. The next day, the padlock was gone. A week later, a shiny new keypad was installed. I punched in my code, the gate clicked open, and I drove through my shortcut, feeling a wave of pure victory. Karen, who was inspecting her rose bushes nearby, refused to even look at me. The best part, the whole ordeal made the other residents realize how much power Karen had been wielding unchecked. At the next annual election, she was voted out as president. My quiet, sweet neighbor Bob was voted in, and the whole atmosphere in the community changed overnight. It just goes to show you that sometimes, fighting back doesn't mean yelling the loudest. It means reading the fine print. And trust me, it's always worth reading the fine print.